Uh, Thanks everybody for joining and your interest in MDM. Sorry I can't be there, but I was in Melbourne last week and managed to catch COVID on the way home, so probably best that I'm not there. A little bit about me. I've been working in the MDM space for over 20 years now. And this presentation is just an introduction, but it covers some of what I've learned over that time. So I'll give you a flavor for MDM. I'm sure you've all come across it and have your own ideas of what it is and what it isn't. But it will tell you, what I have seen it to be and what I believe it to be. Now, the presentation is not about any particular technology. I'm a great believer in not looking at the technology for MDM until you figure out what you want to do. There is, of course, a technology component, that's fine, but that's not the be-all and end-all of MDM. I'll also say there's no single template for MDM. So you'll see lots of different examples as you look around. You decide what kind of implementation suits you best and how far to go with it. Nobody can tell you exactly how far you need to go. And quite frankly, I've never seen two identical MDM implementations in my life, and I've seen quite a few. So it's always good to look back at the evolution of some of this technology because it helps to put it in context. Those of you old enough to remember the 1990s, and I was reminded that that was actually last century, but there were a lot of CRM implementations and they had a very high failure rate. And when vendors looked at it, the failure rate was mainly due to the data quality and also to the distributed nature of all of the data. I think Vlad was saying earlier that he'd seen a department with 7 or 10 different repositories of citizen data, not uncommon. So vendors came along and they invented something called CDI, Customer Data Integration, and it brought all that data from all of the other systems. And then they added functionality to that and called it CDM, Customer Data Management. And then thought, oh, we can do that with other master data domains like products and suppliers. And it became MDM, or Master Data Management. So that's a little bit of the unofficial history of where we are today. So what is it? I thought I would Google it for you. That's a good Canberra term of Google it, mate. But I did get 93 million results. So I thought you might want to Google that yourself. But put simply, it's the management of your master data. Okay, nothing more than that. And we do it because we need to manage data as an asset, just like you'd manage any other asset in your organization. And I've said before, it's not a piece of technology, but there is technology involved. Okay, make no mistake, there's a lot of technology involved, but that's not the main thing here. I would say that MDM programs are more about change management than technology. And I'll explain why I said that. MDM, if you do it properly, will change the way you work and the way you think about your data. Your current processes will change, maybe even your data ownership will change. And change, like any other change, is driven from the top and goes right down through the organization. So get the highest level sponsorship you can of the program. And I'll come back to that point a little later as well. But everyone in the organization should understand their role in the management of data, from people who produce the data, who capture it initially, to the IT department, who are the custodians of the data, to the consumers of that data, to the people who read the reports and analytics and so on. Now, you'll often hear companies talking about instilling a data-driven culture in the organization. I don't know if you heard that term before, but I'm sure you've come across it. This is what I mean by that change management. You're installing or instilling a cultural change in the organization when it comes to data. So let's talk about what it looks like. And we'll have a look at a banking example. Now, the reason why I chose a banking example and not a government example is it's something that we can all associate with. We've all got bank accounts, so we understand it. The banks were early adopters of MDM, and simply because they had to. Because some years ago, the government brought in anti-money laundering legislation. And as part of that AML, there was something called KYC, know your customer. And when they went to the banks and they said, do you know your customers? The banks couldn't say yes, because it was very difficult for them to do it. So I'll talk about a typical banking example. Now, banks are very smart, and they saw this not as something that they had to do, but an opportunity to make some money from it. They pulled all this data together and said, wow, we have all this data. Now, what can we do with it? And I'll talk about some of the things that they did. Now, I talked about your 93 million results from what is MDM. I happened to find this picture, and this is a beautiful picture because it's a picture of MDM. I've got no idea what it is. And I reckon that whoever made it had no idea either. But it's such a wonderful picture that it says nothing, but it looks really good. So let's go into a banking example. And some years back, probably not now, and not in any of the modern banks, when you go into a bank, you went in to open up an account. You open up a credit card or a savings account or a home loan or insurance account, whatever you wanted to buy. So when I went in, they say, how can I help you? I said, I'd like to open up a credit card account. And no problem, they gave me an account. And they captured my name and the account number and my address and so on. So in the banks, they had a credit card product system. They had a savings account system. They had a home loan systems. They had insurance systems, and some of them were internal, some of them were external. So this is great, but it was difficult to identify duplicate customers. So you'll see my name is Anthony and Tony there. So that's, you know, your customer type issues. They had no single view of customers. They had onboarding issues. They had maintenance issues. So a maintenance issue is when I change my phone number, where do I change it? Do I change it in the credit card system or the savings account system? And the bank as a whole couldn't tell how much I was worth. Am I a good customer or a bad customer? So they implemented MDM and they consolidated all of their data into one place, and they recognized all the duplicates, and that's a beautiful data quality. And suddenly they could tell, I know who this customer is. His name is Anthony, likes to be called Tony. That's his home address. He's got 3 accounts. He's got 2 insurance policies with the bank. Suddenly I know a lot about him. And that was great for the banks. But then they said, okay, let's see what else we can figure out about this customer. So because they knew everything I had, they gave me a status of a VIP gold or whatever their status is. They could give me a lifetime value. That's really important to them. They could offer, they knew what my next best offer is. So if you ever call a bank, if you ever call a bank and you're sorting out some issue, they'll say, oh, can I interests you in an investment account. That's where they get that information from. That's the next best offer. And of course, they know my family because they're at the same address. They know my family accounts and so on. They then share this information with the branch, with the call center. So that when I go into the branch or when I go to a call center, they don't look at my credit card account. They look at my personal, and then they'll go off and look at the accounts from that. It also enabled them to build web applications, mobile applications on top of that core data, so that I can log in directly and do things. And when I do log in directly and I want to change my phone number, then the question is, do I change it in the hub or do I change it in the credit card account? Now, I'm going to come back to that in a moment, but I first want to talk about that data quality circle because it's probably the most important part of MDM, which is the entire data quality system underpinning MDM.
Excuse me, Tony. Sorry
Yep.
for interrupting. Is it possible for you? There is a lot of detail on your slides. Would it be possible for you to go to presentation mode and share that with us?
I thought I was, no?
No, we are actually
preview mode.
Preview mode. Yeah, presenter mode is what you share. As you can see from one of the.
I am clicking down the bottom. Slide.
Just leave it there. Just use that if you can.
Yeah, that's what I was in.
Better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, no, gone back. Thanks.
He's using a multiple screen, so sharing the wrong screen. Yeah, you're sharing the wrong screen.
Dear on it. Okay. Let me stop sharing and then I will share again. Desktop to PowerPoint. What am I sharing now? Is that better?
No, we see your lovely face, but if you
hang on.
click
I got to click share.
yes.
Thank
you.
Okay. I never knew that. Okay. I've got a monitor attached to my PC. That's why.
Hey, Anthony, this is Nagan. By the way, as Vlad mentioned, there's a lot of detail in your slide. Is it possible to share it with us, just for our learning?
After the presentation, yes, we will share the content.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. You should have pulled me up on it earlier, Vlad. Sorry.
All right, interrupt you, but.
So yeah, I want to talk about two things. One is the how does the customer access their data, and also this data quality circle. Now, I talked about them matching, merging all that data and matching it together. Now, that's very easy to say, but very, very difficult to do. So what we want to do is match and merge that data from multiple different sources and create the best record based on what we call survivorship rules. In other words, if I have two records that are exactly the same, what constitutes a match? How do I know they're the same? What are my rules around this? And the rules could be things like the last record updated wins, or I trust this particular source system more than I trust the other one, and so on. Your business will make up the rules. Now, what I have found is you can only go so far with automation. The business needs to make the final decision on, I say some matches there, but actually quite a lot of matches because they're just too close. You'll set your confidence level, are you confident with 98%, 90%, so on. You'll get to a point where you'll say anything less than 85%, I'm going to look at it manually. But matching and merging, very, very difficult to do. Well, matching is difficult, merging is very, very difficult. In order to do it, it depends on good quality data. Okay? Now, good quality data, again, it's difficult to do. You need to make the decision of how far you go. It will never be perfect. Don't try to make it perfect. But the whole process of data quality consists of profiling your data, cleansing it, standardizing it. And all of the rules and the standards come from the business. That will also set your KPIs, and you need to monitor and report on that fairly frequently as well, because you want to know, is my data getting better or is it getting worse? So even in a simple data set like this, you'll see that there's there's duplicates. So Bob and Robert is the same. Similarly, Tony and Anthony are the same, and that's a rule that you make up. On the second column there, you've got Avenue and AV dot, they're the same. You've got your non-standard formats for your mobile phone number, you know, no leading zero, hyphenated, +61. Those 4 fields are all the same number, but look completely different. And then on the state as well, we've got the same issue, Vic, capital Vic or Victoria, which one is your standard? So you think you'll have things like misfielded data, you know, phone number and the email address, you'll have missing data, you'll have misspelt data, you'll have mixed names or multiple names as well. So that's on, you know, 6 or 7 columns here. So you can imagine with a real database, the number of issues you have is almost infinite. Now, I will recommend, if you don't have one already, get yourself a good address verification tool that will solve half of your address problems overnight. But this is one of the first things you need to sort out, your data quality, before you even touch MDM. Don't take anything out of the box until you sort this out. The next question I wanted to come to was the data maintenance. So what happens when a customer changes their details, or even if an internal person changes a customer's details? Is it changed in the hub or is one of the source systems? Is it synchronized into the hub or out from the hub to the source systems? So what we're trying to get to is, how do all of the systems see the same data at the same time? Now, this is a very, very difficult question because it's not easy to do. You'll need to make a decision and go with it. It's a lot of work. And this is where your technical solution comes into play, your integration, your synchronization of data. There may be some application changes as well. But if you want to do it properly, do it in the hub. But it's not easy, but it's worth it in the long run. And I'll talk about the different styles of MDM in a moment as well. But first I will say that MDM is not just about people. We've been talking about people or party ID up to now, but it's also places. It can be places, it can be buildings, locations, farm, a field, an area of water in the middle of the sea. It can be anywhere that has a geolocation. And then, you know, you can get a picture of it, you can put it on the screen, you can get a map of it. MDM for places is one that's not mastered very often, but it should be. It's a very valuable thing to master depending on your business. So if you're the Department of Agriculture, for example, you know, MDM of places is really, really important. The other MDM is items. So your fleet cars, assets, products, anything basically. This is probably, in my opinion, the most difficult thing to master because there are hundreds or even thousands of attributes per items. And you'll see the difference between good ones and bad ones if you do some shopping online and you look at all of the data that's attached to those items. So go look on Amazon catalog or your Bunnings catalog. You'll see structured data, you'll see configurations of bill of materials, for example. You'll see product relationships between different products. And then you'll see unstructured data like Word documents, instruction manuals. You'll have images, CAD drawings, things like that as well. Very, very difficult to do, but worth it in the end. So I wanted to talk for a moment about the different styles of MDM, and we saw one earlier. So if you go to Gardner Group, Gardner have a lot of good information on MDM, and this is one of their slides that I borrowed, and this is what they say is the 4 main styles. Now, you don't have to stick to these. You can do variations of it as well, but the registry style, sometimes called an index style, is the quick and easy one to do. And it's basically just building an index of your master data. And it will say in a previous example, you've got Tony Boyle in the middle, and you've got an index that points to 4 or 5 different accounts. That's all it does, but it's a quick index or a register. The next one is a consolidation, or sometimes called an analytical MDM. And this is really just bringing all your data together, matching it, merging it, putting it into one database, and sharing it with your reporting or your analytics system. It's not used for day-to-day transactions. So they call it consolidation, or I generally call it analytical hub. The last 2 are very similar to what you saw in the banking example. The coexistence hub, where a change in one system is synchronized into the hub and then synchronized out to all the other source systems. And then the final one is sort of the better one, in my opinion, which is centralized. It gives you high level of control. Changes are made in the hub and synchronized out to your other databases. Hugely invasive to the business, but it does give you that centralized governance, and it gives you your greatest control over your access and security. So they're the things that I liked about it. Changes are made in one place. It is your master. It's a true master. There's only a single source of truth. It cannot be changed anywhere else. So that is the creme de la creme of MDM solution, but it's difficult to do, and it will take you a while to get there. So I stole another Gardner slide because I like this one too. Because you've been looking at this and you're all thinking, that's great, Tony, I want one of those. Where do I get one, and how do I start? And this talks about where do we start, or how do we meet the challenges. And I have seen this quite a few times, and it's very accurate. It starts with somebody in your organization having a vision. Right? This is not your normal IT project, so it's a bit larger than that. It's a bit big picture. So you need somebody in there with that vision thing, somebody that's going to be your champion, that's going to push this within your organization. And somebody like the guy in the bank who said, okay, we've got to do this, but let's make money from it. You know, that kind of vision. You need that. And of course, it's great when you have a guy doing that, but is it a shared vision? Can you convince the rest of the organization that this is a good thing for you? You know, we should do this. And then they have to come back and decide, is there any value in it? And, you know, it's not just a money value, but it could be saving money, being, you know, smarter, quicker, better service to citizens, whatever your KPIs are, that's where the value is. And then you have to say, you know, what does success look like? You know, what happens when I get to the end? How do I know when I've got to the end? How do we know we're successful? How do we measure this? So once you've figured out all that, then you can start to say, okay, what does the journey look like? I know the vision, I know we see value, I know what it looks like in the end. How do we get there? What's the journey look like? And indeed, what governance do we need over this? This is the important question, and I'll talk about it in a moment. How do we organize for it? You know, do we stand up a small team of people? Do we need 10 programmers? Do we go out and we hire a consulting company? How do we organize for it? And is it really just technology? And by now, you know the answer to that, no, it's not just technology. So with the governance question, if you talk to Gardner again and say, why do MDM implementations fail? They'll say lack of data governance and, you know, lack of high-level sponsorship. So really, the first thing you should do, in fact, even before you go shopping for MDM, set up a data governance council or a team or whatever you want to call it. You Google that, you'll get another 93 million examples as well. And what that council will do is they'll identify the data owners, the data creators, consumers, and so on. Now, data owners is always a good thing because I have kicked off a few of these projects before, and I will ask the company who owns this data, and everyone in the room will put up their hand and say, I own it. And then I say, okay, who's responsible for it and who's accountable for it? And naturally, everybody puts their hand down. So data owners, responsibility, accountability, all of these kind of things will come out of this data governance council. It will also nominate data stewards. They're probably the workhorses behind MDM. And what will come out of that as well is the data quality standards. And what also comes out of it is the fact that you need to continually monitor and measure your data over time and share the results out with everyone in the organization and say, look, we're getting better, we're getting worse, here's why, and here's what we're going to do to fix it. So if you've got that executive sponsorship of the governance council, they will be very interested in how you're going there. The next question was, what does the journey look like? You know, we talked about the first part of understanding where you are and having that vision. And after the vision, I would recommend that you do something, okay? Build a foundation there. So start it fast. Build a foundation, get some early benefits, get the organizational proficiencies in place, prove that your solution works, prove that your people work, your structure works, all of that kind of thing. You'll get a lot of valuable lessons from that. And then once you build the foundation, then you just build on top of it. You deploy it in phases and you keep going until that's the way you work. You're optimizing the solution and you're optimizing the management of your data. So after you've done all that and you've got a great big, beautiful data hub with beautiful data in it, what do you do with it? Well, then that's the time to make that data available to your data warehouse people, your reporting people, your analytic people, your data science team. They will all be able to use the information that you've got in there. And share it with your other applications, with other departments, if that's possible. And then you can start to, you know, spread it out and you say, okay, I've done my master data management of people or organizations. How about I map them against locations, or I map them against products or items or catalogs, that kind of thing. So you can keep building on this. This is not a project with a beginning and an end time. You keep building on it and you enrich your data over time. Now, that's another really important point. And what I mean by that, and I'll go back to, you know, what I talked about with the banks about exploiting their data. You know, they started off with the bare minimum of data, just the identifying attributes. And then they added on to that these extended attributes. So instead of just name, date of birth, and address, they got your emails, phone numbers, mailing addresses, employers, income, marital status. And then they got specific financial services data on top of that, your campaigns, appointments, any inbound or outbound calls, credit ratings. And then a great thing to do is go and get data from outside and bring that in. What's your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook profile, who's your friends, who are your followers, what kind of reviews or blogs do you write. All of this is building up an extremely rich data repository for you that your analytics people can love. Now, speaking about analytics people, I did say share the data with the data science team and the analytical people, but also don't forget to take that data back from them. And this is where you get things like customer loyalty or propensity to churn. You can't calculate that in MDM. That's calculated in your analytical systems, but you can feed it back to your MDM system. So when that customer calls in to the branch or calls into the call center, your call center agent sees that he's a gold VIP customer, but he's got a high propensity to churn. What do I offer him? What do I offer that customer to keep him? So that's what the banks do, and they do it very, very well. And finally, well, sorry, almost finally, the benefits, you know, what do you get out of this? You know, it's a single source of trusted, consistent data, and that delivers user confidence. So users will begin to trust the data. They'll drop their individual spreadsheets or databases or access databases, whatever else they have, because they've got confidence in the data. The quality of the data improves due to the focus. This is your change management. You're focusing your organization on this. Report become accurate. Access is easier to manage as well. And of course, you know, your improved customer or citizen service and satisfaction. That is probably the key thing for a government department. Now, finally, I wanted to just give you some advice on, you know, what I've learned over the years. You want to start one of these, get buy-in from the very top, as high as you can, whether it's a department secretary or minister or whoever. Don't sell it as an IT solution, and never go around saying we want to do master data management. Nobody's interested in that, but you want to improve citizen service, or you want to make things better, quicker, faster, whatever, whatever will sell this. So get your vision guy to sell this as high as you can in the organization. Don't let the IT department own the program. I have found that business units have a problem if it's just another IT project and they don't know what's in it for them. This is a long-running program, so probably best if the CIO is not the sponsor, and the IT department don't own the program. The business needs to own it. As I said, start small and put in place the people and the processes and technology and show some value out of that. And you will show it fairly quickly. And then just keep building on the solution after you've proven it works. Given that you're mostly from government departments, funding is always going to be an issue. It should not be on a per project basis. It's got to have long-term funding for this because this will go on for a long time if you do it properly. And, you know, as I say, data is an asset. Treat it like you would any other asset. And if you think about your assets, you walk into your building in the morning, you've got to scan your card to get in through the turnstiles or in the lift or in the door. The cleaners come in every night and they clean it. And the maintenance people come in whenever there's something wrong. They do preventative maintenance. That's how you treat an asset. Think about how you treat your data. Does it have that level of care? And finally, don't forget the change management. And that was it.